This lesson is in partial fulfillment of the following student learning objectives. By the end of the semester, students will be able to demonstrate knowledge of the origins and historical significance of several important styles of American music, and they will be able to recognize, identify, and explain the importance of several historically influential pieces of music of varying styles. Gospel music, an introduction. Gospel music's roots go back to Africa, but most of the sound was developed at the height of the slavery era in the American South. In order to prevent the slaves from communicating with each other, they were banned from making music from their native lands, playing their traditional instruments, and practicing their tribal religions. They were required to attend their master's church services. Christianity and the church became a comfort and guiding force in times of the slaves' great difficulties. Spirituals. Spirituals are a kind of religious song that emerged from call and response field hollers sung while working in the fields. They combine traditional African music with Christian subjects. The lyrics of spirituals paralleled the Bible stories of God's leading the Hebrew slaves to freedom. These songs gave slaves hope and comfort about eventual escape to freedom. One of the most famous of these songs is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. The slaves also used spirituals to communicate with each other, sometimes giving coded message with information about escaping to the north. Gospel music spread to the north in the late 1800s after African Americans were allowed to perform publicly in large ensembles. White audiences embraced this new sound wholeheartedly, and soon its influence had an effect on traditional religious music as well as popular music. When radio was introduced in 1920, it began to play an important role in introducing gospel music to audiences all around the world.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere.
Welcome to a special presentation we call Freedom Songs. I'm Clarence Horton. On behalf of Cabarrus County and the Cabarrus County Public Libraries, we'd like to welcome you. During the troubled years which preceded the divisive war of the 1860s, the enslaved people of the South were forbidden to read or write, to dance the traditional dances of their African heritage, to worship in their traditional faiths, or to play the drums and other musical instruments. They were encouraged by their owners to attend their local Christian churches, and they usually did so, sitting in separate sections or in balconies which were specially constructed for them. Following emancipation in 1865, the freed people formed their own congregations. Historic First United Presbyterian Church USA was founded in 1867 by Reverend Luke Dorland, a Northern Presbyterian minister who also founded Barbara Scotia College. And also his work led to the organization of Belafonte Presbyterian Church on Rocky River Road in Cabarrus County. Barbara Scotia College was first founded in 1867 as Scotia Seminary by Reverend Dorland. It was intended to provide a quality education for young women of color. After its merger with Barber College, it took its present name. Although both First United Presbyterian Church USA and Belafonte Presbyterian Church will celebrate their 140th anniversaries this year, they are not the oldest African American church in Cabarrus County. That distinction, according to Reverend Harold Robinson, who wrote the first history of African American people in Cabarrus County, goes to Zion Hill AME Zion Church, which still serves its congregation in Concord on Skipwith Street, and which was founded in 1859 during the last years of slavery. Although slaves embraced the Christian religion and traditional Protestant worship, they tried to retain as much as possible of their own heritage and customs. They created an entirely new type of American music, the spiritual, which blended African rhythms with American verses. With that music, they were able to express their longing for freedom, their patient acceptance of suffering, and their belief that eventually justice would triumph. African American Christians closely identified with the story of Moses and the Hebrew children. In songs such as Go Down Moses, with its haunting refrains, they were able to express their innermost desire for freedom and for liberation. Other songs spoke about their enslaved condition and were filled with secret codes and double meanings. For example, Steal Away encouraged those who were thinking about running away from their enslaved condition.
Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away home. I ain't got long.
Songs such as Wade in the Water gave good practical advice to those who were seeking to avoid the trackers who followed runaway slaves.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade out in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. See?
They sang longingly of crossing the Jordan River, another name for the Ohio River, because on the northern side of that river lay the free country and the land of Canaan, the sweet land of Canaan that they were seeking at that time. Still other songs gave advice on seeking help from those who ran the Underground Railway. Songs such as Gospel Train and Swing Low, Sweet Chariot reminded the runaway slave to look for helpers along their journey north. After emancipation, the old songs were not quite as popular among the freed people, perhaps reminding them too much of their sad past. Collections of them were published, however, and then they were revived briefly during the Renaissance of the 1920s. During the middle of the 20th century, the Civil Rights Movement, the spirituals once again came to the forefront as songs of encouragement for both marchers and protesters during those troubled years. Many performers who love the old songs have become concerned that their purity and meaning are being lost. Mr. Calvin Earl, who acts as a goodwill ambassador for the African American spiritual, has become determined to work toward preserving the spirituals for our generation and for future generations. Mr. Earl was a native North Carolinian, born into a musical family, and was considered himself to be quite a musical prodigy as a child. He now lives in New Jersey. Through his efforts, a joint resolution was introduced in the Congress in 2006, which seeks to name the African American spiritual as a genuine American treasure. Mr. Earl has sung and lectured at such venues as Carnegie Hall and at the Kennedy Performing Arts Center. Through his efforts, he's determined to help preserve the oral traditions and the heritage which the spiritual seeks to encapsulate. We invite you to be with us again as we continue to tell the story of this special place, this Cabarrus.
I know my Lord is a man of war. He fought my battle at Hell's dark door. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last.
The Fisk Jubilee Singers. Fisk College, now university, opened in 1866 in Nashville, Tennessee. It was the first liberal arts college for young men and women, irrespective of color. By 1871, though, the school was in dire financial trouble. George White, the Fisk treasurer and a music professor then, created the 9-member choral ensemble of students and took it on tour in 1871 to earn money for the school. The first concerts were in small towns, and the early audience's response was one of surprise, curiosity, and some hostility. One early concert in Cincinnati brought in $50, which was promptly donated to victims of the notorious 1871 fire in Chicago. Continued perseverance and beautiful voices began to change attitudes among the predominantly white audiences. Eventually their skepticism was replaced with standing ovations and critical praise in reviews. And gradually they earned enough money to cover expenses and to send back to Fisk. They sang for President Grant at the White House in 1872. During their European tour the next year, they sang for England's Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. Afterward, Queen Victoria commissioned a floor-to-ceiling painting as a gift for the school. It hangs in the school's first permanent building, which was built with funds raised from that 1873 European tour.
The Fisk Jubilee Singers were the lyrical voice of Black Reconstruction. They introduced the world to the sacred artistry of their enslaved ancestors, the songs known as the spirituals. Their home base was Fisk University, launched in 1866 as a school for African Americans in Nashville, Tennessee. By 1871, Fisk was facing a serious financial crisis, placing its future in doubt. The school's music teacher and university treasurer organized a student choir, then led them on tour, hoping to raise enough money to save Fisk. It was a bold gambit.
The repertoire of the Fisk Jubilee Singers struck a chord with the audiences.
Most white concert patrons had only seen black people on stage in minstrel shows. The spirituals were the country's first real introduction to African American music and black religious traditions.
Oh, brothers, you ought to be there. Yes, my Lord.
These are songs of overcoming. They were about healing. They were about love. They were about the black struggle.
They allowed someone else to understand what it means to be in your world or in your shoes.
The Fisk Jubilee Singers brought a sense of dignity, purpose, and beauty, shared that tradition, and served as a reminder of the deep humanity of black people.
With the profits generated by the group's performances, Fisk was able to buy the land on which it sits today. Fisk is one of the many historically black colleges and universities established during Reconstruction that still thrive. The Fisk Jubilee Singers have received the National Medal of the Arts and have been inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame.
Let my people go.
To this day, the school continues to celebrate the departure of the choir's first tour.
to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming forth to carry me